Dan, I habitually procrastinate on important tasks, CV writing, for example, for months on end, waiting for the right time. It is severely holding me back. How to avoid this? Well, I covered that in chapter 4 in 12 Rules for Life, so you could read that. That would help. It's called Compare Yourself to Who You Were Yesterday instead of who someone else is today. Look, if you're procrastinating on your CV writing, then you're biting off more than you can chew. And I would say to some degree, it's a reflection, and I don't mean this in a pejorative way, it's a reflection of a lack of humility. You think you're capable of taking on larger tasks than you actually are. And the proof of that is in what you said. You take on these large tasks and then you don't complete them. So obviously, you're not capable of taking on the large tasks and completing them. So with regards to CV writing, you have to sit down and negotiate with yourself. You have to ask yourself, like, seriously, okay, I need to do something about this CV. I need to at least start it, because obviously you're not going to finish it unless you start it. And then you have to ask yourself, like you're asking someone that you don't know and that you can't negotiate with very well, what you might be willing to do. Like, so if you come to see a behavior therapist and the problem was, well, I can't get started on my CV. The therapist might say, well, why don't you just bring your CV next week and we'll take a look at it. Just bring it in rough form. All you have to do is download it on a disk or email it. And then the person may or may not do that. And if they don't do it, well, then you have to find out. Then you may have to say, okay, well, I noticed you didn't email your CV to me this week. So how about this? How about we make an appointment by phone tomorrow at 10:30, and I'll phone you or you phone me, and you'll be on your computer and you'll go through your files with me, and then you'll email me the CV. Do you think you can do that? And then usually people will manage that, but maybe they come back the next week and they haven't even done that. And so then you say, well, look, why don't you bring your computer or your disk and we'll go through it together and find your CV and bring it up on screen and just take a look at it. Because actually a CV is quite a daunting thing to work on because it's your whole past and your whole future. And so it's a pretty big dragon. The trick is to find a piece of the solution that you would be willing to engage in, that you would actually do. And so, I might also recommend to one of my clients that all they do is go onto their computer and find out which folder their CV is in and open it. Just open the file, open the folder. And then that'd be one day's work, is just go open the folder. And then maybe the next day is, well, drag the file onto your desktop so it's there. And then maybe the next day's job would be, just open it. Just open it and just like glance at the first page and then close it. And I know this seems ridiculous because you'd think, well, I'm an adult and I should be able to do more than that. And maybe you can, but it sounds like you can't. So you have to start where you can start. And I also recommend to my clients that once they make themselves a deal about what they're going to do, they stick to it. So if the deal is, well, I'm just going to drag the file with my CV in it onto my desktop, and that's today's task, I'm not going to start working on it. Because once you make a deal with yourself, especially with regards to something you're afraid of and you're avoiding, if you push yourself farther than what you've negotiated with yourself honestly, then you'll find that you won't get back to the work because you don't trust your negotiating abilities anymore. You don't trust yourself. So if the deal is you drag the file onto the desktop and that's today's job, and that's a lot better because it's more than you've done for 2 months, then you give yourself a pat in the back and you say, look, good enough, man. Like, it's no big act of heroism that I can go out and shout about in the street, but I'm farther ahead than I was. And then, then maybe the next day's task is, read it. Just read it. Just familiarize yourself with it again. Close it. Good enough. Then you can think that night, well, where are the holes? What needs to be updated? Then the next thing might be to say, well, here's a list of 20 things that might need to be done with this CV. And they don't all have to be that accurate, but you might have some sense of what needs to be updated, where the holes are, and where it ends, and what you'd have to do to get the information necessary to update it. And that's a good time to talk to someone else about it too. And then you can rank order those 20 things in terms of the probability that you'll do them the same way. Break them down into small subtasks. And maybe you can only work on it for 10 minutes a day because it stresses you out so badly. God only knows what's hiding behind your fear of your CV. You might be embarrassed about your past accomplishments. You might be unwilling to do the work because your CV hasn't been updated for a long period of time. There might be holes in your CV that you don't know how to account for. Reading your CV might make you realize that you're in the wrong job. It might bring up the specter of having to look for new employment. A CV is a real monster because it's a record of your life and a guide to your future ambitions. So if you happen to be afraid of it, well, you should take it seriously. It's not just a piece of paper. It's a real dragon. And so then you face it to the degree that you can face it, and you break it down to steps. You break down the steps that are necessary until they're so small that even someone as avoidant as you is likely to make progress. And then you find your natural speed of advancement, and perhaps over a month you can put your CV together, and then congratulations to you, because it's a hard thing. And you'll find too that a lot of fears are associated with that, like, oh no, now if I finish this, I'm going to have to send it out. And if I'm going to send it out, I'm going to have to look for another job. And if I'm going to look for another job, I'm going to have to move. And who knows what that'll do to my relationship? And who knows if anybody wants to hire me? And God only knows if I'll be successful in my new career. And so there can be a tremendous number of subordinate fears associated with something as simple as, oh, I need to update my CV, which is a really easy thing to say, but a very difficult thing to do. So I would say have a little bit of compassion for yourself, like not enough so that it stops you from moving forward or gives you an excuse, but do decompose the problem into small elements that you can handle, and be humble enough not to be too irritated at yourself when you find out just how small those pieces have to be in order for you to successfully master them.